Randy Green here. Let us continue with the text material. And for those of you who kind of just jump into this course and have not done the previous 4 courses, the Psychic Energy, the Psychic Processes, Keeping the Psychic Energetic Balance, as well as the Advanced Work with the Emotional Field, you will have a little bit of a kind of humongous gap, to put it that way, in the understanding of the illustrations that I am utilizing. So the LPF1 reality fields, the foundation of the energy systems and the system that we are part of after the timeline event, is explained in detail in both the keeping the energetic, psychic energetic balance, as well as continuing the definitions and explanations into the advanced work with the emotional field. So I will leave it at that for those of you kind of, why is that there? I'm just putting it there so you can see we're kind of continuing what you have already been taught. But here we're going to work with it in a different manner, because we're going to work with food. And this is the first time, aside from when we talk about energy systems, that we are technically talking about energy and how to work with energy. And this is where we're going to go in this course material, in this section of the whole academy classes, is where we now begin to put into practice some type of work with energy. And it all comes down to some foundational understandings of what are we made of, how do we actually work with energy. And here again, I must point you in the direction of some of the clutter, some of the clogging and clutter that you have in your perception field due to different forms of induction programs, different forms of what we could call brainwashing systems that have taught you certain ways of perceiving reality, which of course is very, very far from the truth. So one of the first traps I don't want you to fall into is when I talk about reality programs, please do not think about this similar to the movie The Matrix, because the movie The Matrix is based upon what I call virtual reality. It is a holographic setup. It is a kind of artificial program, but it kind of runs on what we could call similar binary code systems that we have in our computer programs, although it's never really cleared out how these different forms of technologically driven entities are creating this holographic program. There is some sort of center point in it, and it's a little bit up into the whole kind of very mechanical, put in tubes. What kind of program are they put into? And it all is put up when you see Nemo kind of going, or Neo, sorry. When you see Neo go, not Nemo, that's the fish, but Neo go into the battle, you're kind of seeing these rows of green light of binary code systems, which is very, very far from the original holographic code systems that run horizontally, and that runs in different kind of light language code systems where the symbols are much more advanced, and each symbol in itself is holographic. That means that each symbol is a world in itself. So if you have a sequence of these code symbols that constitutes a reality that links up to the Kunda rays of the reality and the original developmental programs that goes back into the central sun, we're here talking about enormously advanced code systems that comes from the core fields of all realities that are energy in their constitution, but they are driven by consciousness. And the consciousness then gives it different forms and shapes, which some of them we have on our planet, but most of them, whenever you're saying, oh, Randy, how does this symbol look? How am I going to see this symbol? This is the problem. Your brain can't grasp these symbols. It can see bits of it. It can see the edges of the symbol. It can see some kind of, this is how the feature of it. That's the best way I can say it, but you can't really envision it clearly. But you know it's a symbol. Your brain has got enough wits to detect this is a symbol. But when it comes into really begin to understanding that symbol and complexity of the symbols and the holographic features of the energy units, the brain kind of had to give in and say, that's a little bit too complicated for me. And then it backs off and it goes in other directions. So this whole working with the code symbols is therefore what we call one of the last levels of your higher awareness. And that comes with a type of where the brain agrees to let go of perceiving things. It lets go of trying to take control of things and just let you do what you need to do with a different level of your awareness, which technically does not involve brain capacity or thinking at all. And we kind of know this in martial art and other stuff where you just go into flow, where you stop thinking, you stop processing things with your brain kind of steps aside and just becomes a tool on the same level as your organs are working without any directions. They know exactly what to do. They are in the right place in the organism. They are not actively trying to control the work around them or the processes of energy. They just do what they are meant to do. And the brain is just meant to process energy. It is not meant to be the observer. It's not meant to be the one that derives information. And it's not meant to be the one that selects between the types of information. So the first step of all of this working with energy is about letting go of your brain. Literally, let go of your brain. Stop the linear brain processes. This is not something you will ever be able to understand using your cognitive abilities. This is something that is grasped as when you see some kind of a visual inside of your brain, or if you have a memory, that's the best way to explain it. You have a memory of your childhood, or eventually past lives or something else, but we'll just keep it where most of you are. You have a memory of your childhood and you just go into that memory. You're there. Your brain doesn't care about its past, present, or future. You're just there due to these electrochemical processes that activates that memory in your brain, in your perception field. The brain is able to process information and then blast it into the projection field from where you will see it as a memory, especially if it's in the astral field or the emotional field, then there will be emotional content connected to it. And there the brain is just doing its work. The moment you begin to think about the memory, it kind of collapses and then you're out of it. You snap out of it, similarly as if you have bleed-throughs or you're in a dream state, you wake up or what have you. These moments where the brain is just doing what it's supposed to do, is just supposed to process information and put it into its projection field from where you can see it. It's a holographic screen processor. That is what your brain is supposed to do. It is supposed to convert whatever energies you're giving it into what we could call different boxes of information, which then are being blasted out into its projection field. That's the true nature of the brain, but due to the programs and what's going on with the electrochemical energies and the brainwave structure run by frequencies, and by this, the frequency fence and the technologies, the cube technologies that are connected to that, well, that then creates a different type of processes in the brain that keeps you safely away from the true levels of reality. This is what the brain has been re-engineered to do. So part of this is why I advocate for meditation, learning to silence your brain, learning to just observe, learning not to get run over by your emotions, not to be dragged into the drama of your emotions. This is what the Buddhists are teaching us as well. And literally just learn to use your body as an energetic tool that is part of an energetic world, and from that medium can process different forms of energy so that it becomes an instrument of transformation, of perceiving and or perception, as well as how to handle energy into a higher state of existence. And that is technically what your gut system was supposed to do. It in a way, it does it when you eat something that is energy. It kind of processes this and divides the nutrients into what the blood needs and what the lymphatic system needs and what the cells need, and what it can't use, it processes out and it comes out as feces. So in that process, there are these levels that are going higher and there are the going lower. So you kind of have the the progression spiral in your body as well. And it kind of goes with the heart field, just to put it this way, because this is about learning to process energy. And this is how you're going to look at your food and your body and the world that you are surrounded by. Because one of the great mistakes that people are doing when they're doing this work is that they fall out of seeing things as energy, and they fall back into seeing themselves as physical matter, seeing the world as solidified matter, seeing food as solidified matter, when the matter of the fact is you have to keep reminding yourself that everything around you and in this reality is made of atoms, and atoms are composed of literally empty space and different forms of fields that are joined together into what we see as an atom, with a proton field, a neutron field, and an electron field. And this is where you have to have a little bit of understanding of quantum sciences, because there you really begin to understand the whole kind of, there are fields and there have these vibrational or oscillation types of energies that goes out in wave patterns. And this is what accumulates as an accretion disk, the different forms of atoms together, which then will join into that field or that accretion disk that is part of, as a nodal point in that field, combining of different forms of energies. And from that begin to create what we call a whirlwind, or a vortex, literally, of energy, from where the molecules can then begin to take form. And from there, they begin to crystallize, all depending on the programs that are running them, crystallizing them into specific structures, which then becomes the elements. So this is the important thing. What are the elements made of? And here we have another huge trap that many of you will fall easily into, because I know many of you have already worked with spirituality and you have been brainwashed with the ideas of the 4 elements: the water, the air, the fire, and the earth. And this is kind of, I say, oh yes, this is simple. Our planet is earth. The sun is fire. The moon is water, and air is the stellar energies. That would be the easy way, because we're now on page 2, where we begin to work with 4 foundational groups of energy in the body. But it is not that simple, because what is Earth? Earth is the atomic energy. That is the symbolic representation of. And if you do alchemy, and in the Middle Ages and how the different symbols they used to present alchemy, they could be to some kind of assistance to some degree. But again, these are thought systems from the Middle Ages. And just because someone has invented it 2,000 years ago or 500 years ago or what have you, does not make it more correct. It just means that there have been different attempts to try and derive some of the original symbols that were used during the time of Atlantis. And this is what you are seeing in the alchemy, trying to revive some of these very ancient symbols. And we're seeing some kind of derivation of the same time of Atlantean symbols in the star signs that have been made into different forms of symbols, which in themselves lead to some kind of contemplation, but they are part of distortion programs. That is, derailing programs that take you away from the true perception of reality as it is. And that's why I'd like us to work with sciences instead of spiritual teaching systems, instead of alchemical systems, I don't know what it's called, and all of these kind of things that goes with what we could call the idea of magic. Let us go beyond the idea of magic, because magic is literally when you're able to work with energy directly from your consciousness level, when you're able to work with the code systems that are behind all forms of energy. That is what magic technically is, because the moment you can see the code symbols, the moment, if it were possible inside this reality, would we be able to work directly with the elements of our reality as they originally were. But now we're in such a crystalline state. Everything is so crystallized due to the molecular buildup, the atomic buildup, the whole way our physical form is built up, and everything that goes with this reality. The minerals have literally become so solidified and so crystallized that even their patterns, their lattice patterns is and are, even though they are connected through different types of energetic bonds or hydrogen bonds, they are still made out of what we call the building blocks of our planet, so to speak, and our planet is solidified. Okay, so when we talk about there are kind of the different energies, the original energies that were part and are part of our body. And here again, we have to work with the idea that, and the understanding that our constitutional, architecture, when we talk about the physical body, is re-engineered and it is no longer as it's supposed to be. So let us go step a little bit back. So again, talking about the elements as you would like to put them into these 4 categories. The Chinese work with 5 categories. They have wood and they have metal within these classification systems. So you can't just say it's the same thing all around the planet. It's not, because these are part of what we could call older types of medical systems that try to create an understanding of the processes of the body using a description of the elements around us. And I'm doing the same here when I say the sun and the moon and the earth and the stars, because this is what we are made of. And science agrees with that. The elements of our body comes from the surroundings, and that means our planet, that means the solar system, that means the galactic system, and that means the constellations around us. So we are composed out of that. We are universal creatures to the core of what we are, but we need to kind of go from this enormously crystallized state into becoming more flexible when we talk energetically speaking. So where does the elements come from? The idea of the 4 main elements or 5 main elements, metal as added in, and it doesn't surprise me a lot that the Chinese have put in metal, because when we talk about many of the more technocratic type of races, they are controlling that area of our planet to a large degree. So of course that is part of one of their elements, metal. The rest of us that has not been so far taken over by the technocrats, again, make the distinction here between the 2 foundational races. The races of the less progressive universe are using technology to manipulate energy and handle energy. Manipulate just means manu or is Latin and means hand. So it's handling energy, managing energy, is used by technology, and our society is built up to a large degree of that as well, as far as we know. And because we also know how much we can affect things psychologically speaking and mentally speaking, but all what we think and what we feel to some degree, we can actually manifest, even though we think we are doing it into technology and creating by the use of matter. But as a matter of fact, perhaps we are doing something else. Just think about it. How do you use machines? Yes. But the processes that we're doing there, we're transforming energy from one state into something else following an idea. Where does that come from? But going back to the elements, the elements are a signature of the original races that used to exist on our planet before the timeline event. And this is, we can have many different kind of fantasy realms, other worlds, what have you. These words have been used many times in many different settings and stories and what have you. And of course, because it is part of our collective memory. But we have the air people, the sea people, the water the sea or water people, and then we have the earth people, or the people that were able to work with the what later on became the crystallized levels, but that's technically vibrational energy, as well as the one that were the fire people that were able to work with fire. So this is part of the 4 lineages that used to exist on our planet, and that's why I'm saying that metal is unnatural. That's a 5th lineage that were put in, and it doesn't belong here. That is part of the Vega Maldakian system that took in these type of android creatures to do their work, and this is where that technically came from. So that's part of a lineage that technically does not belong to our planet. But we have a lot of iron on our planet and onward and so forth, and this is all after the timeline event, because remember, remember during the timeline event, a lot of very old types of energies from the third cycle got integrated into ours, and by that began a solidification process, as I described in the Source of Humanity. So let us not look at the elements when we talk about the foundational groups of energy in the body, even though I do call it elements. But when I talk about elements here, I'm actually talking about electrochemical elements as we know of them, as hydrogen, as iron, as copper, and these kind of minerals that your body is composed of. This is how you're to look at the elements, not the 4 elements as in the 4 different types of lineages that used to exist on our planet. So this also goes with those of us, or those of you trying to say, okay, I want to figure out what is water. And when we do so, is there some kind of an analogy with the different forms of the moon, the earth, and the stars, and the sun? Is the sun fire? Yes, it is. Is a star the same as air? Yes, it is. But where the trap is that you want to put earth with the mineral level. It's not, it's water. Earth is a water planet. It used to be a water planet, which means it's a vibrational type of energy that goes with a type of vibration that are infused of stellar as well as solar types of energies, which created a specific type of vibrational ocean from where these energies could be manifested into the 4 different types of people that were living on our planet. Some of them were living in different settings that have very little to do with our understanding of reality, because at that point in time, the solidification that creates water, that creates air, that creates soil, that creates fire did not exist. But these are the solidified versions of original types of energy, so that you can keep in mind. But when we talk about the water people or the sea people, they were able of working with what we now understand as the element of water, or hydrogen, and how hydrogen is built up, the molecular state of hydrogen, which are the modern version of a code system that defines what water actually is if you break it down into its holographic components. So water is a matter of that type of energy that drives a hologram. Okay, so that is a different perception of it. And the water people that we now know as the sea people, they were able to work with that level, and therefore they were living in areas which later on, after solidification and the timeline event, turned into water. But water did not exist as we know of it. It came when the moon got connected to the moon is a planetoid, as you know, got connected to our water planet, and by that began an even stronger solidification process, because the frequencies and the atomic energy as we know of it that came from the lunar system were brought to our planet and began to merge with it, and by that altered the original holographic principles from being vibrational and fluctuant and changeable into crystallizing and into becoming solidified in the manner that we know of it. I know I don't put that detail in the Source of Humanity, but this is what happened. And then Maldak exploded, and then there were grids from Maldak that were transferred to our planets, which then began the ionization process as we know of it, creating iron, changing copper that were original different type of energy, changing what we call the silicate type of energy that were actually after the timeline event, we did not have carbon. It was more silicon or silicate. This is why computers and everything that runs on technology use the silicon chips and these kind of things. That was how that was. It's in a high vibrational state. It's in a less dense state, but carbon is the state before things really begin to go into kind of what we call complete evaporation. But it's also easier to build what we call enormously solidified crystallized system from carbon-based atoms or molecules, because they can then harden it similar as the things we see in iron. So So there's this whole kind of, when we have this, why did the dinosaurs die? Did the dinosaurs die because of some kind of cataclysmic event where we had some kind of asteroid that came in and hit and burned everything? And I would say actually it's part of the Maldak explosion that hit our planet, and by that began that process that we understand as creating iron, as creating volcanic activity, as taking earth and the soil and heat it to that degree so it turns into iron, or turns into these kind of magma type of energies which we see in volcanic rocks and onward and so forth. So that is part of that kind of energy that came there. And again, these are, when we talk about the different elements that our body is built of, this is important information because it kind of takes it bridges into science, but it gives an extra level to science, but it also gives us an understanding of, okay, energy is not just energy. There is some kind of code system behind it. There is some kind of original history behind it. It used to have a specific purpose. It used to work in a specific way. And when we work with food, this is where we begin to really look at something between your hands, the food in your hand, the apple in your hand, and really begin to look at it and say, okay, what's this apple composed of? Not just see an apple and how it tastes and all these kind of things. And yes, you know, there are vitamins and minerals, but no. Look at the apple. What is it made of? There is water in it. There is the different elements. There are different crystallization processes. There are, as we remember from the basic level with food, in the whole advanced class 3, where I talk about the insectoid energies, how it has come to be, what is the creational process of it. It's part of a tree. Why is it part of a tree? How's the nutrients in the tree? What is a tree? What's the transformational process of a tree? What kind of technology is a tree? What kind of technology is an apple? And begin to look into everything as a kind of item that transforms energy. Because and this is some of the things when we go into the Pleiadian Sirian project. After the timeline event, our reality was transformed into trying to undo the effects of the timeline event. And that's why I wanted to point you in that direction. And that's why we have these 4 foundational levels of energy or groups of energy in our body. And as it originally were before was manipulated by the hijackers, our body was engineered originally to, after the timeline event, before the hostile takeover, before the Atlantean project, before the Stellars came in, before Maldak exploded, before all of the things that went wrong, by the Pleiadians and the Sirians were engineered to transform energy. And this is where you need to see your brain and your central nervous system as the Sirian part of the technology, and the whole other transformational processes of your body, including the heart field, were part of the Pleiadian technology that were implemented there. And nature was changed as well. The ocean was changed, and the different 4 types of lineages that were present on our planet collaborated with the Sirians and with the Pleiadians to find solutions to this. So there were these early hybrids of what we could call Sirian air people, Pleiadian water people, Sirian fire people, and Pleiadian earth people. That's how it goes. So with these who put themselves together with who. But this is again the different forms of energy that could manipulate. And again, do not look in all of these different movies that have been made with the airbender, which kind of, even though it strikes a chord, it's not completely what I'm talking about, because they're working with the after timeline event and after the hijacking kind of types of energies. We're here talking in reality settings that were still highly holographic, that still had the original types of density 1 and density 2 energies connected to it, that still had the holographic principles intact, and that was still operational with consciousness. But when we look at movies like The Airbender, the movie The Airbender, which is a beautiful movie, by the way, and it does touch ground with the different types of people that used to be on our planet. And it also touched ground with that the fire people were some of the ones that turned evil to begin with, which is not far from the truth, actually, which is interesting. But this is kind of when we work with these movies that are being made. Why they're being made, some of the levels are quite true, and then other levels of it is absolutely not true. And that's because, as always, what's the purpose of these movies? Who is behind these movies, and what is the agenda that wants to be put out and put forth with the different types of movies? And that is for you to figure that one out on your own, contemplate on it. So we're here. I know I'm a little bit all over the place, but what I want to build here is that when you work with food, and when you work with yourself, and when you work with energy, you have to again classify which level are you working on. Are you working within general sciences, as in the solidified matter of atomic energies that are lunar to its core, even though it has a high level of water in it? That's why we can say that we know that Earth is a water planet, because we technically consist of 60% of water, and rest is something that's been put in to solidify us, to connect us to the stars and to the moon. So the original people on our planet were solar system humanities that were composed of different forms of vibrational and radiation types of energies that were found together in a triangle of holographic energy units that had their division into radiation energies and vibrational type of energies. And the vibration is the water, and the radiation is the sun into its core, to put it that way, even though our sun has been manipulated. And this is the problem when we're looking at where we kind of have our elements from. Then we think, yes, the sun is a natural thing in the sky. No, it's not. It was re-engineered during the hijacking. So everything has been further solidified, and therefore taken further away from the original ideas of the four foundational types of energies and what they originally were. So when we look at the stars, we have to look at a kind of cold type of sun that is blue-white in its frequency spectrum, if you want to put it that way. And it is a 3-5 combination of these cycles, of the third cycle and the fifth cycle. And there you have to have this intuitive understanding of what does that actually mean? What does that do to the energies? It creates a specific type of blue-white fire. And this cannot be explained better than that. It has transformational processes, but it is not hot. It's cold fire. And then we have the lunar energies that are atomic energies and frequency spectrum, which mean colors. And that's kind of counterintuitive, because you look at the moon and there's no colors now, it's just dustified. Yes, because that's the process of the lunar energies. That's what they do. They crystallize and crystallize until they turn into dust, and no processes can be there. And when we talk about the frequency spectrum, remember that is just the visual light spectrum that your eyes are engineered to see. There's enormous amount of energies beyond that your eyes cannot work with, because the cells in your eyes are not engineered to perceive these levels of reality, of course. So therefore it's easy to create reality programs that are holographically and at the same time are what we call a deception layers that blocks our brain from processing the true spectrum of energies that our reality is made of. And that is what the lunar programs are part of. That's where you have the deception. That's where you kind of have the lunatic kind of level of it that narrows things down. And the technologies that go with this are some pretty nasty one that were also part of the magic that unfolded. And that's where I literally talk magic. Negative. There's only negative magic, because that is the wrongful use of energy, wrongful use of consciousness for selfish purposes, because that's what magic is. To its core, there's no such thing as white magic, because magic is always a manipulation of energies for your own benefit, and therefore will always be selfish, and therefore will always be bad, because you work with energy to develop the reality field for the highest good of the many. And thereby it is a progression that everybody embarks on, everybody agrees on, and therefore it's not some individual being that's doing something. There's no heroes in the true worlds, okay? There are people that work together to create a better world for all. So therefore there's no such thing as a magic. But there are different forms of energies that we are working with to transform them into their higher state of existence. And magic does not do that. Magic always leads to a lesser form of energy that leads to some consequences that always have what we call a negative karmic effect. No matter how you want to twist and turn it, no matter how many times you try to say it's a good thing or whatever you're kind of deceiving yourself with, that is what the Lunars did, and that is the kind of self-justification of the wrongful use of energy. And that follows in the wake of the use of magic. Always, always, always. So there is no happy ending in terms of manipulation with energy for selfish purposes. And then there are the planetary energies and elements. And this is again where you need to go in and understand that our planet was a water planet. Mars was also a water planet, but there were different kind of, if you want to go into the spectrum of energies. And this is where you actually can look at the microbiota, and there are different spectral colors. When you talk about the elements, they actually have a sort of color to them because they are built of frequency energies, and they are fueled up with atom energies, and they are fueled up with lunar energies, but they do have a specific color to them. And Mars was a green planet, and our water planet is a blue water planet, as it still is today. And that is all to do with the refraction of light and the sky and these dynamics that are happening there. But what is that blue light spectrum? What does the blue light do? And this goes into the understanding of the blue flame technology, even though what most of the ones that are looking for that one is actually the blue flame technology from Maldak, which is something else because it's technology. But the original use of what the understanding of the cold blue, we're seeing in this transformation from purple, which are lunar energies, they are purple, into blue, into golden, and into white. That is a kind of, even though it is a color spectrum, because that's what your brain can perceive, these are different types of original code systems that goes with different types of consciousness units, if you want to put it this way. Quite a lot of the lunar spectrum as well as the purple energies are technically connected to the insectoids, even though you have the insectoids in the plant kingdom, they are green, but this type of insectoid type of energy, frequency energies that goes with magic, and the lunars are purple. But this is again a different type of creatures, and they are fused in with what we call third cycle type of energies. Anyways, I'm just saying there are reasons why we're seeing it as colors, but don't get all soaked in this is just that color, or this is that frequency. You have to look into the consciousness units, the holographic features, the code systems, and the origin and the purpose of these different forms of energies. Kind of every type of energy has a kind of history attached to it. And it is the history that is built into the code system that makes it holographic, because it unravels its content of information, which includes a history. It includes the line of energy, where it came from, where originated from, which kind of cycle it came from to begin with, and how you actually work with that energy to transform it. And that is technically what food is. Even though it has been made into something we now eat, we were engineered originally to work directly with energy by merging ourselves with it in our influential sphere, and by that transforming that type of energy. And this is what has been re-engineered into that sad state we are now, where we now have to consume energy to exist. Whereas in the early times under the Sirian Pleiadian projects, we were transforming energies around us. We were conductors of energies. We had light cones that went upwards from our heart and downwards from our heart in this regression spiral, from where we could transform energies to higher states upwards and crystallize things downwards into what we have now been turned into pooping. and transforming food in our intestinal tract, which is now full of microbiota from other systems, including Mars and other places, of a more avian insectoid, reptoid type of a genetic composition. So this is some of the basic understandings that we are to work with, and I will continue with this line of thought on a different level. In the next video, here we just kind of have a little bit of foundational thought of when you work with energy, when you work with food, whatever you have of concepts and belief systems and prior understandings, all of this you have to let go of and literally just look at what is between your hands, sense the energies of it, sense its history, sense its purpose, and figure out how do you transform this into its highest state of energy before you begin to consume it. And by that, at the same time, also work with the same transformational processes in your body, where you understand that this is not about you eating to get satisfied. This is not about desire. This is not about hunger. This is about an original feature of your body to process energy, to transform energy, from which some of it would be released to a higher energetic state and others via the progression spiral, and others would be left out to be pooped out as dry matter with no energetic potentials in it whatsoever. So it's also a matter of working to recode your whole intestinal system, and slowly, as we also work within the basic energy work videos, transform your organs and everything you are back to the original purpose of transforming energy from a solidified after timeline event reverse type of crystallization processes into progression dynamics, from where energy and consciousness can take the right features of transforming energy into a higher state of existence, from where higher levels of consciousness can reconnect to it. And these are some of the processes I actually also talk about in the book, The Souls of Humanity. Thank you.